Welcome everybody to Crazy Train of Thought, brought to you by the Aided Savants. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am live from Savant Studios with Colin Giffey, and we are interviewing Simon Viklund from 10 Chambers Collective.
That's right.
It's really awesome to be able to talk to you here, Simon. Why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, I'm part of a 9-man development team called 10 Chambers Collective. We're working on a 4-player cooperative horror action stealth game, and we're I'm responsible mostly for music and sound effects.
Okay.
But I mean, what I love with being in a part of a small development team is that you have to wear many hats. So I do some, community management. I'm the person in charge of the Twitter official 10 Chambers Twitter account, and I answer, emails and stuff as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So you get a lot of community engagement then with what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool.
We have a great Discord server, which is very active.
Yeah, I saw that. You guys have like 30,000 people in your Discord server or some shit like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's even more. Like we went from 10,000 to like, I don't know what. There are many different numbers. There's like the amount of ambassadors that have signed up to our mailing list as well.
Okay, Gotcha.
And if I start talking numbers, I'm going to confuse the numbers. But there's tens of thousands of any of all of them.
That's super cool. Awesome. What does that feel like to have that many people wanting to play the game that you guys are making?
It's amazing. Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah. Right.
We've been trepidatious about, we've been working on the game for so long, and you get this feeling that maybe we're just, in love with this thing, and we put it out there in the world and no one understands it, or people might hate it. There might not be an audience for this thing that we think is missing on the market, sort of. But it's been a resounding yes, I guess, to whether there's an audience, Yeah. Because people seem to really respond to it. Even when people fail, we put out this alpha with one expedition, and it's really difficult and punishing. But people seem to like to finally get a game that doesn't hold you by the hand, doesn't give you too much, doesn't spoon feed you a lot of information and stuff. You're just dropped into this scary, dark underground complex, and there's no waypoint to move towards. There's not a lot of information, and then you're just sort of left to your own, to find out together with your 3 squad mates, and then the game sort of encourages, communication and coordination to navigate through the complex and everything, and there's no hand holding. So even when people die, and they die a lot, people seem to really enjoy it. And then I guess the when you do succeed eventually, there's been less than 2% of those who started have beat it.
I don't doubt that. Yeah.
I don't doubt that. We didn't get very far.
I guess I would assume that the success is all the sweeter when it's that hard, And by the end of it, which is by design, when when you're coming towards the end, or the further in you come, that the fall is farther. You're gonna have to restart and do this all over again. So it gets more and more tense because you have time invested in this attempt to complete the map or the expedition.
Right.
And a lot of games, they give you auto saves all the time, and it's a nice thing for casual players. But GTFO is not for casual players.
Casuals, dude.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that was something that we talked about. Colin and I did. We did an episode, and we talked about the alpha, and we were really impressed with the way that the game starts. Just like it dumps you right in. There's not really a menu screen. Like, you pick the expedition that you go on, you pick your characters, and then that's it. Like, you get your weapon choices and everything, but there's not really any sort of backstory. And then we liked that loading of the game was buried behind the elevator shaft going down into the earth, is what it seems like anyways, without a lot of backstory. You seem to be shooting down into the earth to go into this cavern. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And I mean, there aren't even any logos in the beginning.
Right, exactly.
We don't have the 10 Chambers logo or the game's logo or anything.
Awesome.
You're just thrown immediately sort of into role playing as this prisoner with some sort of a data feed of whatever program or piece of software is managing you as a puppet in this
right
sort of I guess labor camp sort of setup that you're caught up in.
And that was really cool to just start the game. And I think the only tooltip that you get when you start, it says, find the hydrostasis unit and then 3 numbers and then just look for clues in the environment. And we were like, oh, well, okay, fuck. All right. So we kind of fucked up while we were playing because during that first segment, we mostly skewed towards traveling right in the map and we never went left, which if you follow that first alpha map all the way, like going to the left, that's where you find the door that you need to open. So we never went to that door during Colin and I's first night of the playthrough, and then you guys expanded the alpha after that. And so Colin, on our second playthrough, he was like, well, let's go left. Let's try left. And so finally we found the door so we could look for the key card because we never knew which key card we were looking for. And then we found the computer, and it was really cool to like be able to type that stuff in and discover those things about the game. Like you're saying, it doesn't hold your hand and you're forced to figure these things out.
Yeah.
And
it's not for everyone. We realize that there are going to be a lot of rage quitters and a lot of people just being, getting frustrated by how the game works, both in terms of navigation like that, but also combat and the lack of ammunition and health and things like that. It's very unforgiving in a lot of ways, but then the game isn't really for those people. Like we think that there's an audience of people who love cooperative games and want to be put to a test, people who maybe preferably already have a squad, or are members of squads of like 4 people, maybe play Rainbow Six or something together, something more strategic. Obviously, if you've played Left 4 Dead or the Payday games, maybe, then this would be, up your alley as well.
I wondered
but
if
really
Left 4 Dead was
it's different.
Influence.
It's different that it's much more strategic and slow paced.
Yeah, I definitely felt some of the influences from Left 4 Dead. It seemed like. Can you talk about some of the creature designs? Because I was watching some of your dev diaries on Twitter or on YouTube, and it looked like you guys had gone through a lot of different initial designs for the creatures that you combat before you settled on the designs you eventually came up with. And I saw some that were influenced a little bit by like Pyramid Head and some weird box-shaped creatures. And can you speak to that a little bit? Just like how you settled on, because they feel cohesive, but you had like a lot that you seem to like make your way through, I guess.
Yeah, I that's the case. That's always the case. Like you gotta make a list of what's important. It needs to be scary or weird or something that is just unsettling.
Yeah.
I guess the geometric shape sort of monsters were more like unsettling and weird rather than scary, which is why we abandoned those approaches. But you got to try some weird stuff out before you know for sure that that's not the route to go, and those ideas were innovative for sure. But in the end, maybe it didn't really tick all the boxes.
Right. I think that
a lot of the reasons why we set the game in a science fiction sort of universe is that we want to be able to do anything really, and have it put anything into the gameplay, like, oh, there's a monster that flies or levitates, or there's a tool that you have that can have this tracking system, or this weird, I don't know, there's security systems that use these holograms and stuff that don't exist today, and it's justified why it's in the game for the simple reason that it's set in a sci-fi environment. If we were making a contemporary game, or a game that takes place now, then it would be more gamey to have these things in there, because you'd realize, oh, this is only a visualization that I see as a player playing this game, whereas the characters that are in the game, the in-game characters in that universe, in that space, would not see these things because they don't exist in this reality.
Right.
But we can do anything, and it's all like for the sake of allowing everything to be gameplay governed. If we can come up with it, the idea, like, let's have a monster that behaves like this, or let's give the player a tool that works like this, then we can put it in there and just say, oh, there's a future technology that allows this to work. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with the monsters, to loop back to the monsters. Like we just want to be able to do anything and have like a fauna of monsters,
right?
Where anything is possible. So they can levitate, or they can crawl around on the walls, or they can be like insect-like, or they can be like, we want to just be able to throw stuff at the players. First and foremost, it needs to serve the gameplay. Like, it needs to challenge the players in interesting ways, and not just be, oh, this is a bullet sponge enemy, and it takes more damage to kill it, and it makes more damage against you, and that's why it's difficult. That's not a fun way to design it.
Right.
We want to make something that's challenging in interesting ways, first and foremost, and then secondly, also be creepy and scary.
And I think you guys accomplished the creepy and scary. Yeah. Very, very well.
Yeah,
I know.
So far, we have sort of like meat and potatoes enemies in the game, like humanoid shaped, and sort of they can be a lot of them, and they move sort of like in what would the word be? I don't know, traditional. Like, they just run around the ground.
Right.
So there's no flying enemies or anything like that. There isn't a lot of vertical gameplay at all, really. Mm-hmm. You don't have a reason to look up into the ceiling or anything. But there will be stuff, there will be other stuff than this.
I don't know that I want more, Simon. Holy shit. We were it was mostly Colin and I that played, and we were pretty overwhelmed by just the ones on the ground.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah.
But yes, we have a lot of ideas for new monsters and new environmental cool. like conditions and hazards and stuff that just, mess with you. There was fog, very thick fog in the alpha expedition, mm-hmm. and there will be darkness, complete darkness, and there will be monsters that you can't shine lights on, which is that was already in the alpha. Actually, mm-hmm. They wake up if you shine lights on them, but there might be monsters that you need to shine a light on, and if they're like, imagine some sort of a Venus trap sort of thing on the wall, and then as you pass it by, in order to avoid it, you need to constantly shine a light on it as you pass it, or because it sort of retracts back into a shell or whatever. And if you don't, it'll attack you, and there's no way to kill it because and you sort of accept that because it's a static enemy, at least. It doesn't mm-hmm. chase you.
Right.
But if it's in like a narrow corridor or anything, you can't get past it without actually always, as you move close to it, shine on it with a light. And things like that, there's just, aren't necessarily, wasting ammunition or using your weapon in any way, but actually more like, okay, there's other things in at work, or other ways to interact or beat sort of these monsters. Those ideas we love.
Yeah. Yeah, we watched some of the IGN game footage. You guys played with IGN, mm-hmm. and you did 12 minutes of gameplay with them. It looked like that was a separate level from what the players experienced for the alpha, Do you have a plan for how many levels are going to be available when the game launches?
I can't go into any detail about it right now.
Okay.
But we're gonna go out with some news about that.
Okay.
So when you wake up in the US tomorrow, you'll have the information.
Okay. Well, damn. I mean, I definitely won't put it out today if you want to talk about it. Like my lips are sealed, bro. Like
it's well, if when people watch this, they should go to our YouTube channel and check the latest video for information about that. But yes, it's not a traditional campaign, but it's based more on updating the game with new content all the time.
Okay.
So we were toying around in the beginning with procedural generation. In the beginning of the project, and there's actually maybe some interviews or some tweets or something out there early on that sort of alludes to something around those concepts being in the game.
Okay.
But what we decided was that, and we tried it out for a long time. That's why we took like over 3 years from the beginning of development until there was an alpha, really.
Okay.
Because we've been working so hard on these tools and we've been trying them out, and we've come to the conclusion that procedurally generated stuff, maps specifically, become sort of, yes, there's an endless amount of variations, but it becomes sort of soulless and doesn't have a lot of character, or there's something missing.
Yeah.
So it's a cool concept in theory, but it's really, really difficult to deliver on. And I don't think any game has done it. You can accept that sort of stuff in Spelunky.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one that comes to mind for me for sure.
Yeah, and so games have done it correctly. Yeah, but once you go into first-person shooter territory, there are higher requirements, I think, and you get more issues with how AI is supposed to, solve, navigating through that environment, and in order for it to not be, too repetitive or too there's a lot of issues. What we decided to do, and one other thing I need to mention is the fact that once you procedurally generate stuff on every individual user's computer, then suddenly no one has any bragging rights because no one's played that same level. And
right.
we wanted to make a game where there's bragging rights, and we want to make, because it's going to be a freaking hard game, and we
2%,
want people to be,
2% of people.
Exactly. 2% of people are going to have bragging rights. Everyone else is going to have, I don't know, be crying.
Yeah.
But so we wanted to create a community where people start making tutorial videos, like this is how we did it, this is our suggestion, and people being interested in, I wonder what this team are doing, when they live stream on Twitch. I want to see how they take on this map or something. So we wanted the community to focus on the same set of maps.
Yeah.
And not be like everyone has procedurally generated stuff, So we've just come up with a concept that sort of marries a little bit of procedural generation, that we're using those tools internally within the studio, which allows us to have a sort of a high rate of production for new expeditions, but also inject some love with some actual curation and working with the some hands-on with level designers actually injecting some more inspiration and love into these.
Right.
These things, but yeah, that's about as much as I can reveal at this point, I feel.
Well, I think you guys made the right choice, because if Colin and I, when we played through the alpha, had that map been procedurally generated, we would have never discovered that left was the way to go, because left wouldn't have been the way to go every time. And so,
well, obviously,
we would have been beating our heads against it.
We would need to give the players the ability to replay that same generated map until they beat it, not just one attempt, obviously. But yes, it's one of those things where like we even with the maps that we will be in the game in the end, just like the alpha map, the geometry will be the same.
Mm-hmm.
But you will not always find the key card you're looking for in the same place.
Right.
You can't like remember the name of the key card or the zone that you're supposed to go to the next attempt, because that might change.
Right.
Yep.
So those things are randomly generated from every attempt to the next, and then also placement of monsters and what mix of monsters are within a room. So that changes everything, because you come to a room where last time there was a huge battle, and this time maybe it's empty. And
right.
then the next room that you just breezed through, the last attempt, is suddenly there's a scout in there, and there's potential, then that's where the big battle or the hard, sneak past, segment is. So
right.
It changes what part of the map becomes super interesting and difficult. When we like to think that we've found a nice balance there, where there is enough that is the same from attempt to attempt in order for squads to learn from their mistakes and being able to like, let's try this strategy and let's bring those tools instead and go with this approach. But there's enough that's different in order for everyone to have to be on their toes, at all times, and really, be on point and be like, because you can't open a door and be like, this next room is empty. I know that from last attempt, because there might just be a big guy just on the other side of the door, So there is a reason every time to bring the bio tracker. Right. Otherwise, there wouldn't be. You'd bring a bio tracker the first attempt, and then that would be it.
Yeah. And we did not discover the usefulness of the bio tracker until much, like, we probably played through 5 or 6 times before we were like, let's try that bio tracker thing. And like, I don't know that it got us any farther necessarily, but it definitely helped.
It helped a lot.
To be able to track the enemies, especially the ones that move. Like, our first playthrough, we never made it to the enemy that has the brains spewing out of it, brain searcher guy. And that thing moves around the map, but most of the other enemies prior to that are static. So it's like, I don't need the bio tracker until you get to the motherfucker that moves. And
then once, poop hits the fan and all the monsters are moving, then it's really useful to be able to mark those enemies.
Yeah.
Because then suddenly even the ads sort of can be marked.
Right. So you guys did your huge alpha test. You had a lot of people, it seemed like, playing the game. I saw a lot of people on Twitter talking about it, and even a couple of my wife's friends were playing it when you guys did the alpha test. How many people did you end up having test the game, and did you guys learn some stuff?
I think it was like 50 or 60,000.
Nice. That's awesome.
I'm not sure. It's a huge accomplishment, because it wasn't an open alpha. No one can just go into Steam and launch it. You actually had to sign up to our mailing list and then go into our official GTFO Discord server in order to get alpha keys. But then, of course, that's really for a quarter, I guess, of everyone. So we don't have 60,000 people sign up to our mailing list, because everyone gets 4 keys, 1 to keep for themselves and 3 to gift to potential, I guess, teammates on Steam. Mm-hmm. But yes, there was sort of a high bar of entrance there.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is willing to sign up and stuff. But 3/4 of those, I guess, were given the keys from someone who was generous.
Right.
But it was a success. And what we learned, I guess, was we knew that people would start finding bugs that we hadn't found out, because we cannot never put in the testing hours, required, to match a group of 60,000 people.
Right.
playing the game over and over and over like that. And when you play as a developer, you sort of play in a different way anyway, and it's hard to break that habit. You don't really play, complete the map or die and then keep playing the game, like going back to the lobby and starting over. And we had bugs, that started appearing there, and then there were bugs that only appeared in the version that was released, and not in the editor version that we're playing through the Unity editor.
Okay.
And we're not. We have to look into that. What is actually the difference? Because there were some bugs, like the music could get stuck in combat music, perpetually in combat music, even though you were sneaking around, which was weird. And that was only on client side, never on the server. Weird. But it only appeared. We could never recreate that bug in the editor because there was something different in the version that we played. There were some bugs, and so it was really useful, and we're super thankful and grateful to everyone who played the game and helped us, because people might have enjoyed the alpha, but the truth is it was not a demo. Like, it was not for the community,
right? As
much as it was a test of the game for us, for the sake of the development of the game, in order to polish it, further,
right?
And with that in mind, it was a success as well.
That's awesome. You got something, Colin? You've been pretty quiet.
One thing that I was wondering,
he's got PTSD from the
yeah, no, man,
from playing the game.
It was a crazy game, man. We played it weeks ago, and I'm still man. One of the things is, like, how long have you guys been working on this game for? Like, when did it start?
2015, I think.
Wow,
damn.
And you said 9 people.
We weren't 9 or 8 to 10 people back then, but yeah, Ulf and some other original members started working on the game in 2015, and then in the fall of 2016 I officially joined the team as well.
Okay.
So it's been 4 years for some of the team members. And the game didn't look like this, obviously, from the beginning. And it had a different, stealth system, and the balance between stealth and we've been experimenting a lot,
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be, different flavors in expeditions in the future as well. Not necessarily, such a heavy emphasis on sneak as in the alpha expedition, but yes. A lot of the time has gone into researching what type of game and pacing and atmosphere we want in the game, how to achieve that with the lighting and the music, and how the monsters look and move, and how much ammunition and stuff you have, because it all plays into how you perceive yourself in that environment. We want players to feel like they're very vulnerable, which is why you have this permanent health bar rather than something that regenerates, and you start caring about, getting into cover and actually, looking for something like the simple design decision to not drop health and ammo from monsters that you kill.
Right. Right.
You're not rewarded for killing the monsters.
Right.
You only kill them because you have to, if they attack you or if they're in your way, between you and your goal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only basically for survival, never to farm XP or health or ammo or anything, because you don't get anything from killing them. And that alone makes a huge difference to other games, I'd say, or most other games, because you're not, you need to unlearn so much from by reflex. When you're a first person shooter player, you move into a room, there's a monster, and you start firing.
Right.
And that's not the way to play GTFO. So you need to okay, this is not a game where you shoot first, And
I thought that was interesting, because you do have so many weapons right at the outset. You're like, they're just going to fucking give me an assault rifle? Okay. So right when Colin and I first started playing, I'm like, we can both have assault rifles? Let's fucking do it. then we get in there and die immediately. We're like, oh.
Yeah, you got 30 bullets.
Yeah.
I'm just hitting them with the gun then.
Yeah, and the shotgun. I was like, I'm gonna go with the shotgun. It seems like that kind of game, and it gives you 12 bullets, and then it's not even a one-hit kill every time.
Yeah,
so we just failed instantly.
Yeah, and like you said, having to unlearn those lessons. Like I was expecting to have to unlock those type of weapons because that's how first-person shooters work. Now, you do unlock weapons as you play through. Is that something you guys are still looking into, or is that pretty much set what you got?
The set of weapons that you have at your disposal in the alpha was not necessarily what you'd start off with in the game. We just sort of created a bunch of weapons, one in each basic category.
Right.
One DMR, one assault rifle, one SMG, one sniper, one shotgun, and stuff like that. So yeah, there will be even more categories actually in some fancy versions of it.
Okay.
Like auto shotgun maybe and stuff like that. So there will be other things, but yeah, it's not like you start off with all of that stuff.
Okay. So in terms of player progression, is that something that you guys are planning on doing? Will there be like Call of Duty's prestige system, let's say, your player character will level up and it'll be like, okay, you've leveled up to level 7. Now you've unlocked the assault rifle because you're at level 7. Or what, is there any sort of, what is the plan for player progression coming through the game?
It will be based around completing expeditions.
Okay.
And getting the rewards from the expeditions.
Okay.
And then you will slowly build your golf bag.
Okay. Right.
Figuratively speaking here.
Bag of tricks.
Obviously, but yeah, we want players to not, I'm the SMG guy and I'll always play with this SMG that I've pimped out and this is my favorite weapon and it always works. That's not how it's supposed to be. Maybe a little bit more for the weapons, but even less for the tools, because we want the players to not feel like, oh, I'm always the guy who carries this tool because this is what I do. But everyone has to have like a golf bag where, oh, I need the putter for this one. So what's my putter, for a map where there's a lot of whatever those conditions, or stealth heavy, or a lot of fog, or some spores in the air that forces you to go between oxygen refill stations, anything that messes up the gameplay and forces you to add, adds another layer on top of just moving around and finding the objectives and avoiding the monsters. You need to, if there's another layer, if there's another thing that you need to constantly think about, it makes it more complex. And then there's tools maybe to sort of alleviate or counter that in some shape or form. GTFO is a game that deprives the player of so much information and health, and when you go into the darkness, there's you're deprived of light. If you go into the fog, you're deprived of vision beyond 2 feet away from your retina, really. So it's it's easy for us, I'd say, or it's ripe for for creating tools where you're giving a little bit of those things back that you're deprived of, and I think that's a testament to an interesting game design, where it's not always like, oh, I want a bigger gun, I want it to make more damage, I want a bigger, a magazine so I can shoot for longer before I need to reload. But you actually start thinking about, I wish there was a way to close the security doors once you open them, so that we can create a choke point, or we can stop the monsters from that side of the door to actually come to us. Maybe there's a tool for that, or there's at least some sort of a consumable item that you can find in the environment, like things like that. There's so much that you want on other than just ammunition and firepower, and I think that makes the game very interesting. So yes, there will be, obviously, I didn't mention that, but obviously there will be more than the 4 tools that are in the alpha.
Okay.
There will be a lot more tools, and,
Awesome.
and the idea is for them all to be very useful. Or if there's an expedition where there's no reason to sneak around, then maybe there are tools that aren't very useful in that one, but they will all like be very useful in some expeditions. And then the idea is also to create like a symbiotic relationship between the tools, so that maybe there's right now already, if you place a sentry gun and then you shoot foam in front of it, then the monsters will get stuck in the foam and become sitting ducks for the sentry gun. So that's very useful.
Yeah.
You can foam a door, close the door and foam it, and set up a trip mine on the other side, and then the monsters will pile up on the other side, and as they break through, that trip mine will kill maybe 8 monsters instead of just the very first one that runs through alone. Maybe, I mean, we've been dreaming about, maybe there's, I don't know if we'll have some sort of a flamethrower, or if it will be, something that can set things, on fire. Maybe there's a welder or something like that, and then you can sort of have a secondary attack on that thing, and it can actually have a sort of a flame, and then you can set maybe glue on fire, because the glue is flammable, and then the glue becomes a fire damage thing that monsters actually take damage from, not just get stuck in. Yeah. So all these, we have ideas for how to, but the interesting thing obviously is that everyone can only bring one tool. Mm-hmm. So in order to get that symbiotic effect, you need to talk to at least one other teammate and agree that you should bring this thing and I bring this thing. And then together we can start messing around with those strategies that weren't accessible otherwise.
Yeah.
So yeah, the strategy or the gameplay really starts already in the loadout screen, mm-hmm. where you as a team really have to decide together, like, what should we bring? What's the strategy here? Mm-hmm. Because it really matters what you bring. You can't just be, soloing it from the beginning, and that's why we designed the loadout screen to be. It's very clear what you bring and the others bring. You see everyone's loadout. Yeah. That's more important than the characters themselves, the tools and the gear, the weapons and stuff that everyone brings.
Definitely, I agree. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about the sound design, since you're the sound guy. How did you come up with the noises that the creatures make? And like they shudder a little bit if you leave the flashlight on them a little bit too long, or if it looks like they're about to wake up and then you get into sneak mode, and sometimes they'll pull back and not wake up. Other times you'll set them off. Like, how did the sound part of that come about?
A lot of it comes from a session we did at one of my colleagues at 10 Chambers. We went to his place because he had this walk-in closet with a lot of clothes hanging, and then we figured this is a good studio because all the clothes will absorb the sound, and then we just put a mic in there. I don't even think that you could have the light on when you were inside. So you'd have to stand there in complete darkness, if I recall correctly. And then we just, I brought a microphone and a laptop, and we sat outside. I think there's 2 Instagram stories on my Instagram. If you look for Simon Viklund Instagram, you'll find it. So that was, 2 years ago or something like that. 1.5 years ago, or I don't know really, but you go back and you'll see it. We have Ulf, one of my colleagues, the game designer and creative director, coming out and showing off how he does these weird, like, inhaling sort of noises. And then there's Svante, another colleague, who could scream like a girl, like super high pitched. He was like, because everyone was, mostly Ulf and I were doing a lot of weird stuff, like, sort of twisting our vocal cords or contorting, our throats in some way, and starting to like trying to find ways to, like, maybe if I suck and place my tongue just enough so that just enough air gets through to,
right,
and then some sort of a thing in the back of your throat starts like flapping back and forth, and it's weird, makes weird sounds. And then you pitch that down or you reverse it or something, and it becomes super interesting because it's based on human voice or a human sound, but you've manipulated it, and it becomes something really horrific. So we haven't actually been incorporating a lot of animal sounds, but it's mostly actually the team members like messing around with what we can do with our own voices, and I think that's it's a nice approach because it makes it like very personal and very organic.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds gross.
Yeah,
good job.
Sounds gross.
Like there's this sound that they're snoring when they're sleeping. So it's almost like a creaking noise.
Yeah,
and that's actually Ulf, and he just did some like some low pitch. I can't do that, but I found a sample where he did that, and he got these nice like the waveform was so like the flapping of the vocal cords or whatever was so low pitched that you can actually see these individual, like this is one flap and this is the next one. So all I did was actually, I haven't manipulated it in any other way than cutting it up into all these individual short bits and stretching them out, placing them further apart, which is a sound that a human voice can never make. Because you can't make one flap and then make it flap again in your vocal cords. It has to be a consistent tone. So it's like unmistakably human, the sound, but it's like slightly something in there, which is the space between those little creaks or those little the vocal cords flapping or whatever they're doing.
That is super cool to learn that story. That's awesome. And you worked on Payday with Ulf, correct?
Yes, on both Payday games, yeah.
How did it come about that you guys decided to go in such a different direction? Like, obviously, Payday's still cooperative, but not any sort of sci-fi setting. Like, was it just the need to have, like, unlimited possibilities that you guys chose to have the sci-fi setting in GTFO instead of a more real setting like Payday?
That's the short answer.
Yeah.
Also, of course, we need to set the game apart from what we've done previously.
Sure.
So it felt natural, especially once we decided that, okay, this is a game that's going to put a lot of emphasis on cooperation. You're in our mind, a lot of games claim to be cooperative, but they're really only games where you're allowed to, if you want to, play alongside your friends, not necessarily cooperate.
Right.
And we wanted to make a game where cooperation is crucial. You cannot survive without cooperating. One player cannot carry a team. Like you need to, everyone needs to be on point. And once you start playing the least bit, sloppily or absent-mindedly in GTFO, things go south really quickly.
Really quickly.
So we wanted to make that sort of a game. And then it felt sort of natural to go into horror themes and horror territory, even if we realized that it's not going to be scary in the same way that those scripted games are, where it's a single-player game. You're a little girl with a flashlight going around, and it's those are super creepy, I'm sure.
Right.
I played a little bit of those. And the famous franchises like Silent Hill and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The super creepy because you're alone and you don't know what's out there. Once we start, just by the fact that you're playing, this is a cooperative game and you play together with up to three friends, makes it a much less scary sort of experience.
Yeah.
But we wanted still to tap into the horror sort of atmosphere and horror theme, because we think that it naturally, when the game has that sort of an atmosphere, you're more inclined to stick together. It's sort of the atmosphere alone inspires cooperation, or at least, moving as a unit.
Yeah.
And that's something we wanted the game to do on a gameplay sort of level, where people are encouraged to play together, but move together. But it would be nice if the atmosphere alone also sort of inspires that sort of behavior. So yes, it became natural to go in the horror sort of way. And even if it isn't scary in the same way, a scripted horror game where it's like every time you open that door, that there's going to be this animation or this face is going to come, to cover the screen, and it's scary. Maybe it doesn't have that much replayability in that regard, because it's going to be the same every time. GTFO is more about the tension and the not knowing exactly how things are going to play out, and your investment as a player in terms of time spending, time spent in that during that attempt, trying to beat the expedition. But then again, what's horror is really very subjective. And we've seen videos of people on YouTube playing GTFO, screaming from the top of their lungs, when they open a door and there's a monster on the other side. And that's not a scripted thing. That just happened because the random placement of the monsters happened to place the monster right there. So it's interesting. It's not sandbox, but it's sort of like more of a, you're just dropped down into this playing field, and then it's, the RNG sort of gods might have put something together that we didn't even anticipate,
Yeah. You had mentioned that one of your teammates has a really high-pitched scream like a girl. Is that the scream that you hear during the game's opening?
No, actually not. It would be a good idea. What I was going to say, I forgot, because I tend to have these wordy answers, but what I forgot when I was talking about that was that it was mostly Ulf and I, making these weird noises.
Yeah.
And then he was like, so maybe I can try something. I can scream pretty high pitched. And we're like, okay, yeah, sure. And I didn't really believe that it could be anything, spectacular,
right?
And then he just went into that closet and and we were like, was there a girl in there that we didn't see or something, because it was so high pitched. And that's actually on my Instagram.
Okay.
When he looks out the door, he does like two screams inside, and then he opens the door and like looks into the camera, like proving that it's him.
Right.
It's very high pitched. I cannot go that high even in falsetto,
Right. We'll have to check that out. That sounds awesome. So we're going to get some more details about the game starting tomorrow, you had mentioned. Does that include anything about a release date, or are you going to do like a alpha preview kind of deal where it goes into something like Steam's game preview program, or are you guys just like targeting a full release?
We're gonna go into early access.
Yes, and that's what. Thank you. Early access.
That's on the Steam store page. So
okay,
that's public information, and we've been clear about that. But it's said it has said 2019 for a while, and there's not a lot of 2019 left. So it's tough, we're such a small team, and anyone, getting sick or anything not working in the way it was supposed to do is hard to tackle, it's hard to handle when we're so few. It's a very, very vulnerable unit, our little development team. So, but yes, we're still aiming to get the game into early access in December.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. And we want to have a beta test between now and the early access release.
Oh wow,
we're gonna get to play it again.
Get to play it again pretty soon. So All right.
Yes,
one thing we talked about last time, I was like, hey man, when's this game supposed to be released? Like, I believe it's 2019. Went to the 10 Chambers website and I was like, yeah, it says 2019. There's not much of it left. Like,
that was literally the joke that we made. Just him and I chilling together, looking up some more info about the game. So that's funny that you brought it up as well.
Had the alpha not gone, as well as it did, we found a lot of bugs, but by and large, the game is stable. It's pretty well polished. Had it not gone as well as it did, then there would be no plan to still release it, in December.
Yeah.
But it turned out to the bugs that we did discover, thanks to everyone testing it, were they're manageable, and we're super happy about that. So that it turned out that we were closer to where we felt the game needed to be in order to release it in early access than we initially thought.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's in part because we worked on the alpha for so long. So it's like, we call it an alpha, but it's very polished and finished for being an alpha. Really, it's almost like more like I guess a beta would contain more features, more tools and more of the monsters that we want to have in the game. But visually, it's very close to what we want to do. And the reason is really, we started thinking about, we want to try some stuff out that we want to make sure that they really work. So we need to put the game out there and actually have an alpha test. Initially, we were like, okay, it doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to look good. We just want to test the network code, blah, blah, blah. And then we started thinking, okay, we don't have a marketing budget, and we're not going to... we can have people sign an NDA in the beginning when they launch the alpha, and that might discourage people from streaming the game or putting the alpha footage up on YouTube and stuff. But if someone does that, we don't have the capacity or the budget or anything to enforce an NDA. Really.
Right.
We would be in the right, obviously, but it would take too much money and time to and then by then, the video footage is already out there anyway, so the damage is done. So we started thinking, okay, the best way to do it is really to polish the game more than we had initially thought, and make the alpha a really polished product that looks good and sounds good and plays really good. And it is still mainly a network code test, but it looks really nice. And that way we can allow everyone to stream it and put up, videos on YouTube and stuff like that. And in this day and age of, influencers and let's play videos and people streaming on Twitch and Mixer and whatnot, this could be a marketing opportunity, because we don't have marketing money, really.
Yeah. Like a word of mouth.
All we can offer is like exclusivity. Playing the game maybe a little bit earlier than everyone else, but not paying anyone,
Right. So
that's what we did. We approached a few influencers or streamers with quite a few followers. We started off with the ones that dropped by our closed off booth and played the game behind closed doors on E3 2018.
Yep.
So we figured that those people were that were really interested in the game, and we saw them as sort of early adopters. So we got those people to play the game during the weekend before the alpha was launched, and that was pretty much how we got everyone to understand how the game is supposed to be played, because those people played the game the way that it is supposed to be played. We don't have a tutorial in the game, but everyone had the chance to look at those people playing the game in, the 2 days before the alpha was released to the general public. And then they could get an idea of how the game is supposed to be played.
Yeah.
So yes, it became sort of the alpha is as polished as it is, a lot for those reasons, that we can't stop people from streaming. So let's use it instead. Let's use the streaming as something that can be a marketing opportunity. We realize that the alpha is going to be the first impression a lot of people get from this game. So let's not make an unpolished,
For sure.
People, it could say like on a watermark on the screen that it's an alpha, but it doesn't make people, a lot of idiots, I'd say, would still, complain about, things not looking final and stuff like that, even though it's an alpha. And it's nice when people complain about, even though it's polished, people still complain about stuff, and we can always say, well, it's an alpha. We still have that.
Right.
We still have that card to play.
Oh, man. I think the response that I've seen from most people on Twitter has been really positive about what you guys have put together. And I want to thank you for giving us a chance to test it out, because we had a great time testing it, and it was really cool.
It was frustrating.
It was frustrating,
It was fun.
But it was fun. I don't play a lot of games that don't hold my hand, and Colin and I don't even play a lot of PC games, so, like, is there any plan for console support at all? Is that something that you can talk about right now, or, like, maybe down the line? Or even controller support for the game? Anything like that?
There's going to be controller support. Yes.
Okay.
One of the programmers is really adamant about adding controller support to the products that he's involved with, and he's passionate about making sure that people can play the game with controllers. Obviously, it's not going to be what I would consider full controller support. There won't be like Rumble.
Oh,
and you will have to use your keyboard to type the commands into those consoles still for on the PC version, but other than that you can move around and shoot with the help of the controller, switch weapons and whatnot.
That's
regarding an actual console release, we would love to do that. Like we're gamers, ourselves, and a lot of us play on consoles too. I own a PS4 Pro myself, and I play some games on PS4. So yeah, we would even on, it would be nice to put the game out on Switch, even just because it's such a weird, match, this game and Switch. But we're sure there's an audience there as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the reality is, we're 9 people. We can't spread ourselves too thin,
Sure.
And history has proven that simultaneous multi-platform release is hard even for the bigger studios.
Yeah.
We're 9 people, so that's not going to happen. We're going to focus on the PC version for now, and if the PC version is successful enough, obviously that will give us the opportunity to,
bring it to consoles.
To release the game on consoles as well, and we would love to do that, but it's not realistic to approach that idea at this point in time. If first party, Microsoft or Sony would show enough interest, and like we would provide you with, help from a coder that could, port this or whatever, that would change everything. And we would suddenly have, if they give us the budget to hire someone to help us out, then that would make it possible to speed things up,
Well, I follow Phil Spencer on Twitter, so obviously I'll tweet this at him and get him involved, because, I mean, we'll get Phil Spencer on it. He'll help you guys out, I'm sure.
Yeah. Please do.
I guess one last question, Simon, before we get out of here. What was your guys' biggest challenge making GTFO so far?
That's a good question. There's been a lot of challenges. So it's not for a lack of challenges, really.
Yeah.
But I think it's like finding the pace of the game, creating a game that has the pacing that the Alpha Expedition have, and being able to maintain, confidence in that vision.
Okay.
Because it's such there's nothing out there really that's like it. People made some comparisons to this Russian what's the
the one that's based off the book?
Metro?
Yeah, Metro. You got it. Metro. Yep. Metro 2033.
I never actually played the Metro games, but
Metro 2033,
Is it close? Anywhere close to?
Definitely
slow paced.
It's definitely slow paced, and it's definitely unforgiving as a game goes. And if you get into firefights, a lot of times, like, you might not survive and have to replay it. But that is fundamentally different from the game that you guys are making, because it's single player. Like, there is no cooperative thing. But structurally, as a game, in terms of the way it plays and how unforgiving it is, I could see that being a comparison to Metro for sure.
But there hasn't been a lot of like things to look at that's proven to us that this could be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that and that's why in the beginning of when we started talking, that I mentioned that it's been such a relief to see that there is an audience. You know, there's enough people that has been like, I've been waiting for years for a game like this, and and some people even maybe might find out that they didn't know that they wanted a game like this, but now that they play it, they realize that this is something that's missing, you know. And obviously no one wants every game to be like this game, just like you want variety, or you want, you know, different things depending on your mood. But there's place for GTFO.
Absolutely.
But yes, there's a lot of like little details in the game that create what makes, you know, GTFO and the feeling of GTFO and the traversing the environment in GTFO, the feel the way it does, you know. And it has to do with your movement speed and the monsters, and how, you know, is it supposed to be like very few monsters that are hard to kill, or is it, you know, a lot of monsters that can't that die easily, but they have strength in numbers? So where's the balance? You know, how many monsters are the right amount? There's so much that goes on beyond before you land where you get to where we are now.
Right.
So as you see GTFO now, or any other game really, you might think that it's obvious that this game is supposed to look like this. You just take it for granted that it looked like this from the get-go, you know. But there are always these experiments going on during development where you try different things out, and that's been a long process. And obviously creating those tools that allow us to create these maps the way we're planning to. That took a lot of time as well, and we were ready to give up, you know, at several points, and we've been purchasing systems on the Unity
like the asset store.
Exactly. And tried them and looked at their code and looked how they solved, you know, problems, and maybe they've been more for like top down games or, you know, side scrollers and stuff like that, but we looked at those and realized that it's nothing that we can use,
right?
And so Ulf has like created, I think the system that we use now is like the fourth system that he built from the ground up.
Jeez.
So that's been a very long process to actually come to where we are now, and creating tools that can do what our tools can do now. And they're super fast, and they can adhere to certain logics where it's like the key that you're supposed to find is not locked behind the door that you need the key to get through, because then you can never find it, you know, things like that.
Right.
So you can't get those sort of bugs in there. It could get more complex, obviously, than it is now, but we can. The tools are very powerful, and it's taken a lot of time to make that as well. So I'd say maybe those two things are the ones that has been taking the most time, and therefore would be the most riskful, you know, in terms of investment, because anything that takes time is just something that experimentation is something that is scary. And that's why I guess you'd never see something like GTFO or any game that is like pushing the boundaries and innovating coming from the super big studios, because they cost so much, you know. They're like too big to fail risky sort of projects. So they will look at, you know, what we've done before. We'll take that concept, reskin it, change it enough so that there's enough new stuff to be interesting, but it's familiar enough to everyone that it's not a huge risk, you know.
Yeah,
that's
the developers know how to develop it. consumers know what slot to put it in. Like, oh, it's a Halo game, but it's blah 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 or something. So the elevator pitch for GTFO is a lot more complex. Like it's harder to really put the finger on what sets GTFO apart from other games. To anyone who's played it, I guess anyone who's played it would agree that it's so different in terms of pacing, the pace of the game, and the feeling that it's something different. It's in the pedigree of Left 4 Dead and Payday, but those games are more arcadey,
right, and
faster paced. Right. So this is something that we feel very passionate about, and we're so happy to see that there's an audience, and they've been hungry for it, and we're ready to satisfy them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely cool to see anybody trying something new. Colin has played a bunch of Jedi Fallen Order, which is a good game in its own right, but it draws from a lot of influences like the Souls games and Metroid a little bit, where you're finding tools to help you explore the world.
Yeah, I think those are the comparisons that Young made as well.
Yeah. GTFO is super unique and does not fit in any of those molds, and it's nice to see people trying that with shooters. You get a lot of innovation with, it seems like, story-based indie titles, and even some platformers like Celeste is pretty innovative in the things that it does. But like you said, big studios don't really do that on a level. And we watched, or we were listening to an interview that you did with previous people, and I think you called it Triple I. Is like, was the category that GTFO falls into instead of AAA. And I thought that was a good way to refer to GTFO. Like, you guys are really experienced developers and you're really talented, and it is an indie title, but you want to have some of the same like polish as a AAA game.
Yeah,
and that's
just
cool.
by the fact that you're going into the first-person shooter genre,
right.
Suddenly, the bar is higher because poor graphics, or not poor, but simpler or more like minimalistic graphics can be sort of cutesy or charming, or it works better if it's sort of a cartoony game, or if it's a side scroller or a top down, simpler sort of concept. But once you're in first-person shooter territory, everyone is going to be like, okay, this looks horrible in comparison to the latest Call of Duty or whatever.
Right.
It's going to be compared to something that is done by 300 people,
Right.
Yeah. And
with
has
millions
like 300
and millions
times the
of
budget.
Dollars. Right. Budget. Yeah.
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 It's a challenge.
Yeah. That was one of the first things, like, even jumping into the game, I was like, this game looks really gorgeous for, like, what it is. Like, knowing that it was an indie title and just jumping right in, like, I was already, like, it feels like a first-person shooter. Like, it felt comparable to the other games, and it felt realistic, so.
Yeah,
that's really nice to hear. Like, there are things, obviously, that I don't want to sound like I'm, hating on the big budget games because they're not innovating enough. They can do super cool things that we could never do. They have all, custom animations for interacting with things on screen, and they, get performance capture and like real actors and cutscenes and stuff like that. Whether you like cutscenes or not, interrupting the gameplay is another discussion, but they can do really cool things that are really like captivating in another regard. And we can never do that. You're not going to see a cutscene in GTFO ever. Because we don't have the budget and the time and the manpower to do that sort of stuff. So in some regards, it'll be more bare bones.
Right.
But then we really try to focus and innovate and put all our efforts into, the few things that we feel that we can excel in.
Right.
People ask us, like, is there going to be a versus mode? Is there going to be a single player campaign and stuff like that? And we're like, it's a cooperative game. That's all it's going to be. It's going to go super deep on that one bar XP bar is going to go to the roof. The other bars are going to be either missing, like single player campaign versus mode. You're never going to see that stuff in GTFO. There are so many other games that do that so well that you can go to those games and have that. But there's really no other game that challenges a squad of 4 first-person shooter players the way GTFO does. So that's what the game is going to be all about. That's what we're focusing on.
One of my favorite stand-up comedians, Mitch Hedberg, makes a joke about, he says...
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace, correct. A joke about them offering him a TV show, and he compares it to a guy who works his whole life being this great chef, and he's the best chef in the world, and then somebody coming to him and be like, well, you're a great chef, but can you farm? Like, that's exactly what you're talking about. Like, people asking you if it'll be a PvP thing or whatever. Like, that's not the game you're making. That's not what you're trying to do. Yeah.
And we could try.
Right.
We'd fail. We know at this point we'd fail. We'd spread ourselves too thin. We know for a fact that if we put time into that, we wouldn't be able to put as much time as we want to into the cooperative aspect of things.
Yeah.
And everything would be lacking. I mean, you can be square inch sized and an ocean deep, or you can be puddle deep and big. So we want to be super deep within this one area and lacking in the others, I guess, to be frank, rather than be puddle deep across all the areas, a little bit of single player, a little bit of multiplayer versus mode. Like, we have something for everyone.
No.
And the bigger studios can go deeper because they have more money, so they can actually do a super cool single player campaign, and they can put, money into, there's a, flavor of the whatever, Battle Royale mode, and then they have versus mode and team modes, and they have I don't know what,
GTFO Battle Royale mode.
Yeah.
GTFO,
yeah.
Battle Royale. So they can do more because they have more time and money, or thanks to money they have more time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the difference. There's things that you can see from those games that are super cool. And really, there's something for everyone, sort of, and that's a positive thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But they need to sell 12 million copies to feel like they're succeeding, and we can sell 1/10 of that and be not set for life, but we'd be
right.
Very
You'd be all right. Yeah. All right, Simon. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know it's getting pretty late over in Sweden where you're at, so I appreciate you coming on the show, man. It was great talking to you. And we'll probably try and release this sometime tomorrow. And we eagerly await your news about the game. I'm going to go to bed right now. And then that way when I wake up, the news will just be there. So
let's see. It's 20 past 10 p.m. in Sweden. 10. Maybe 10 hours from now, 10, 12 hours from now, it's going to come out. So
perfect.
Right. Yeah, so you can, you can put, if you want to, you can put a link to the YouTube clip in where wherever you post the video or something, so that people can find it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'd love people to add, if I can encourage people to add the GTFO to your wish list on Steam, that'd be lovely. If you have the slightest interest in the game, and sign up to become a 10 Chambers ambassador on our website, 10chambers.com.
Okay. And I think that's it for us. Yeah. Simon, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.
Release a game.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see you later.
See ya.
GTFO is a hardcore 4-player co-op stealth action game. It's a first-person shooter with a survival horror twist, and it forces you and your team to communicate, coordinate, and counter bullets. You play as prisoners held captive by an entity called the Warden, and are forced down into a terrifying underground complex to carry out different objectives. GTFO is being developed by 10 Chambers Collective, a self-funded and independent game development team that consists of me and 8 other industry veterans. GTFO will soon be available in early access on Steam, and in this video,